Picture this. You're sitting in a mahogany-paneled law office in downtown Portland, watching your family carve up a $30 million empire like Thanksgiving turkey. Your mother gets the $25 million Napa Valley estate. Your father inherits the shipping business worth $30 million. Your brother scores vintage Ferraris in a Manhattan penthouse. Your cousin walks away with a yacht and Martha's Vineyard property. And you get handed an envelope. Just an envelope. While your family erupts in laughter, you're wondering if this is some cruel joke. But what they don't know is that envelope is about to change everything. I'm April Thompson, and at 26, I thought I understood my place in the family hierarchy. I was the responsible one, the teacher, the granddaughter who spent every summer helping Grandpa Robert with his business ventures, while everyone else was off living their lives. When Grandpa passed away at 93, I expected something meaningful. After all, he'd been my chess partner for 15 years, taught me about reading people and thinking strategically. The will reading took place in Mr. Morrison's law office, the kind of place where Portland's old money families handled their affairs for generations. Mom sat there in her black Chanel suit, dabbing her eyes with tissues that hadn't seen a single tear. Dad kept checking his Rolex, probably calculating how quickly he could modernize the shipping fleet. Marcus lounged like he already owned the place, while Jennifer whispered calculations to her husband about property taxes. When Mr. Morrison read the will, the numbers were staggering. Dad got Thompson Maritime, worth $30 million easy. Mom received the Napa estate with all its artwork and furnishings, valued at $25 million. Marcus inherited the car collection and Manhattan penthouse, probably worth another $8 million. Jennifer scored the yacht Isabella and the Martha's Vineyard vacation home. Then Mr. Morrison looked directly at me. My heart hammered as the room fell silent. This was my moment. Grandpa had always been closest to me, sharing stories about building his empire from nothing, teaching me about customer service and market positioning during our evening chess games. To my granddaughter, April Thompson, Mr. Morrison continued, I leave this envelope. That's it. An envelope. The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter. Mom actually chuckled and patted my knee condescendingly. Well, honey, I'm sure there's something meaningful inside, maybe a nice letter. But I could see it in their faces. They thought it was hilarious. Poor April, the overlooked granddaughter, had been left with an envelope, while everyone else got millions. Adios, nieta, Mom said, butchering Spanish as she tried to sound worldly. I guess your grandfather didn't love you that much after all. The words hit like a physical blow. 26 years of family gatherings, of being the responsible one who helped everyone with their problems. And this was how they saw me. The afterthought, the leftover. Marcus leaned over, smirking. Maybe it's Monopoly money, sis. That would be about right for your luck. I clutched the envelope, feeling something besides paper inside. It wasn't thick enough for a large check, but there was definitely something substantial there. Don't look so sad, April. Jennifer piped up. I'm sure Grandpa left you something appropriate for your station. Her tone made it crystal clear what she thought my station was. I stood abruptly, the leather chair creaking behind me. If you'll excuse me, I need some air. The laughter followed me down the hall. I could hear Mom telling someone. She's always been dramatic. Robert probably left her a nice little keepsake or some advice about finding a husband. In the elevator, alone except for my reflection in the polished steel doors, I finally opened the envelope. Inside was a first-class plane ticket to Monaco, dated for the following week, and a single sentence written in Grandpa's distinctive handwriting. Trust activated on your 26th birthday, sweetheart. Time to claim what's always been yours. But that wasn't what made my breath catch. It was the second item, a business card reading, Prince Alexander de Monaco, private secretary, with elegant gold lettering. On the back, in Grandpa's handwriting, he's managing your trust. The bank statement was from Credit Suisse, addressed to April R. Thompson Trust. The balance made me dizzy, $347 million. I stared at the numbers, counting zeros again and again, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. That night, I called the international number on the bank statement. After extensive verification and 3 transfers, a Swiss banker with impeccable English confirmed what I couldn't believe. Yes, Miss Thompson. Your trust was established when you were 16, and has been professionally managed for the past decade. Your grandfather was quite specific about the activation date coinciding with your 26th birthday. But I never signed anything, I protested. Your grandfather established it as the settlor. As a minor, your consent wasn't required. The trust has been generating returns from various international business holdings. Business holdings. Those chess games where Grandpa discussed hypothetical scenarios suddenly made sense. He hadn't been making conversation, he'd been training me. 1 week later, I was stepping off an Air France flight at Nice Airport, where a driver in a crisp black suit held a sign reading, Miss April Thompson, beneficiary of Thompson International Trust. The Mercedes ride along the coastal highway to Monaco felt surreal, like entering a movie where I was somehow the star. Prince Alexander de Monaco received me in his private office overlooking the Mediterranean. He was exactly as sophisticated as his photo suggested, rising from behind a massive desk with the confidence of someone who'd never had to prove himself to anyone. Miss Thompson, he said, extending his hand. I am Alexander. Your grandfather was not only a dear friend, but one of the most strategic investors I've ever known. What followed was the most extraordinary conversation of my life. Alexander opened thick folders revealing the scope of my inheritance, controlling interests in the Monte Carlo Bay Resort and Casino, generating $40 million annually, the Belmont Grand Casino and Resort in Las Vegas, producing $145 million per year, commercial real estate in London, Tokyo, and Sydney. Your grandfather made sure all tax obligations were properly managed through the trust structure. Alexander explained. You've been receiving a modest stipend of $60,000 annually, enough to live comfortably as a teacher, but not enough to attract attention. Everything clicked into place. The money in my savings account, my ability to afford my apartment despite a teacher's salary, why I never stressed about finances like my colleagues. Alexander, I said slowly, how much am I actually worth? He consulted a document. As of this morning, the trust's net value is approximately $1.2 billion. I gripped the chair arms to keep from falling over. I was a billionaire. I'd always been a billionaire. Your grandfather was very specific about the timing. Alexander continued. He wanted you to experience normal life, to understand work and responsibility before you learned about your inheritance. He knew that if your family understood your true worth, they would treat you differently, either resenting you, trying to control you, or seeing you only as a source of money rather than as a person. I thought about the will reading, their laughter. Mom's cruel comment? They'd shown their true colors perfectly. That evening, I toured the Monte Carlo Bay Resort with the general manager Claude Dubois. Walking through my property, 300 luxury suites, 5 restaurants, a casino floor buzzing with activity, felt completely surreal. The property has maintained 94% occupancy for the past 3 years. Claude explained. Your trust has been an excellent owner. The next morning, Alexander arranged for the company jet to take me to Las Vegas. As I settled into the leather seats of an airplane I apparently owned, I made my decision. It was time to play chess, just like Grandpa had taught me. The Belmont Grand Casino and Resort in Las Vegas was even more impressive than Monaco. 47 floors of gleaming gold and glass rising from the strip. Sarah Chen, the property manager, met me at the airport with the kind of limousine that would have made my family's jaws drop. During our tour, Sarah showed me financial reports that made my head spin. Everything was meticulously managed, profitable, and growing. Your trust has been talking about expansion, she mentioned. There's interest in acquiring similar properties in Dubai and Singapore. That afternoon, I had video calls with advisors I'd never met but who'd been managing my money for years. My CPA had been filing my tax returns. My investment manager had grown my portfolio from hundreds of millions to over $1 billion. My legal team had structured everything to protect my privacy. Your grandfather left specific instructions about strategic acquisitions. My lead advisor explained, particularly in markets where you have personal knowledge or family connections. Family connections. An idea began forming. Hypothetically, I asked Sarah over dinner, if someone wanted to acquire a small shipping company worth around $30 million, how would that work? $30 million is pocket change for a trust your size. Sarah replied, we could complete that acquisition within 30 days. I thought about Dad's company, how he'd struggled with debt and expansion costs since Grandpa's passing. The research was troubling. Thompson Maritime was more vulnerable than I'd realized. Cash poor and over-leveraged, despite being profitable. When I called Alexander that night, he listened thoughtfully to my plan. You want to acquire your father's company? I want to save it. I said. Dad's too proud to ask for help, but if the right buyer came along with the right offer. And you're comfortable with that deception? I thought about their laughter at the will reading, their casual dismissal of my intelligence. For now, yes. Back in Portland, I sat in my small apartment reviewing financial reports from properties around the world while my family remained oblivious. The contrast was surreal. I'd spent the morning discussing a Dubai resort purchase on a video call, and now I was getting ready for dinner, where they'd probably ask if I'd spent too much on my vacation. The acquisition offer arrived Tuesday morning. Dad called during my lunch break, his voice tight with stress. April, something unexpected happened. We received a buyout offer from some international investment group. Completely out of nowhere. Is that good or bad? I asked, putting on my most concerned voice. It's a really good offer. Almost too good. $45 million, that's 30% above book value. But they want an answer by Friday. Thursday's family dinner was completely different. Dad had spread financial documents across the dining room table, like he was planning a military campaign. As they discussed the offer, I asked pointed questions about employee retention, management structure, and integration policies. April. Mom said slowly, those are very specific questions for someone who doesn't work in business. Grandpa always talked about reading the fine print. I replied. These terms are actually quite good. Dad was studying me with a new expression. April, you're asking better questions than my business attorney did. Maybe I inherited more of Grandpa's business sense than anyone realized. Friday at 4:47 p.m., Dad signed the papers. By 5:15, he owned $45 million and no longer owned Thompson Maritime. By 5:30, I owned the company my father had just sold to me. That weekend, I bought the Westfield Estate, $18 million for 20 acres overlooking Portland, the kind of property that appeared in architectural magazines. When I gave Mom the address, she called back confused. April, you gave me the address of that mansion that just sold to some mystery buyer. I'm not in front of it, Mom, I said, standing in the grand foyer. I'm in it. When they arrived and saw the marble floors, crystal chandelier, and staircase that curved like something from a palace, the question started. How exactly did you buy this house? Dad demanded. Grandpa's envelope, I said simply. It wasn't just a letter, it was notification that my trust had been activated. I'd been a billionaire since my 26th birthday. The silence was deafening. And there's something else we should discuss, I continued, pulling out my phone. I acquired something recently that you might find interesting. Thompson Maritime, Neptune International Holdings. The firm that bought your company? That's my shell company. I bought your shipping business. Dad's face went pale. You bought my company? For $45 million, which was quite generous considering the debt load and cash flow issues. The aftermath was exactly what I expected. Marcus called 3 days later, his voice tight with anger and panic. What the hell is going on, April? Are you really some secret billionaire? I'm not secret anymore, I replied from my terrace, drinking coffee that cost more per pound than Marcus earned in a week. This is insane. We need a family meeting. Tonight. We had a family meeting. It was called the will reading. Remember when you all thought my inheritance was hilarious? The threats came next, Marcus talking about lawyers, fraud investigations, elder abuse claims. I actually laughed. Marcus, I have the best legal team money can buy. Do you really want to spend the next 5 years in court battles you can't afford to win? That evening, they all showed up at my gate like an intervention squad. I let them in but set the terms. They could come up, but we'd do this my way. No interrupting, no demands, no threats. In my living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, I watched them arrange themselves on the sofa like defendants waiting for judgment. What did you want to discuss? I asked. April, we owe you an apology, Dad began. For what? Specifically. For not understanding your inheritance. That's not what you need to apologize for. You're apologizing for being wrong about my inheritance. You're not apologizing for treating me badly. The conversation that followed was the most honest we'd ever had. I explained that I didn't need their approval anymore, but I wanted a real relationship if they were interested in getting to know who I actually was. There is one thing, I said finally. I want a public acknowledgement from all of you for the way you treated me at the will reading. Social media posts, newspaper if necessary. Wherever you announced your own inheritances, I want you to acknowledge that you were wrong about mine. The public acknowledgements appeared within a week. Dad's was published in the business section of the Oregonian. Mom's Facebook post was more personal. Marcus and Jennifer's Instagram posts were brief but satisfying. As for Thompson Maritime, I surprised everyone by keeping Dad on as general manager. Same office, same responsibilities, same operations. The only difference was that he now reported to a management company controlled by me. 6 months later, at a family gathering I'd agreed to attend, the atmosphere was different, more respectful, more careful, but also more genuine. The new ownership structure has actually been incredible, Dad admitted. Having access to capital, being part of a larger shipping network, not worrying about debt service, it's let me focus on what I do best. When you bought the company, Mom asked, did you do it to hurt your father or help him? Both. I said honestly, I wanted him to understand what it felt like to have important decisions made without his input. But I also couldn't stand the thought of employees losing their jobs if the company failed. 1 year later, I established the Robert Thompson Foundation for Educational Excellence, announcing a $100 million grant to support STEM education in underfunded schools across the Pacific Northwest. Standing alongside teachers and administrators at the press conference, I added a personal note to the foundation's announcement. My grandfather taught me that the greatest gifts often come in unexpected packages. Today, we're passing that lesson forward to the next generation of dreamers and achievers. As I wrote those words, I could almost hear Grandpa's voice. Sometimes the most overlooked person in the room is the one with the most potential to change everything. He'd been right, as always. I'd spent 26 years being underestimated, dismissed, and overlooked. But that experience had taught me something invaluable. True worth isn't determined by how others see you. It's determined by how you see yourself. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more gripping stories about transformation and triumph. Remember, your worth isn't determined by how others see you. It's determined by how you see yourself. And sometimes, the most powerful inheritance isn't money. It's the knowledge of your own capabilities.